Developing a strength of integrity and character to show up for yourself, which is the very thing that unconsciously and consciously you want to be building while you're going through the breakup. That's how you realize, wow, I'm okay because I show up for me.
This is the Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
What up, Deep Divers? It's your boy, Adam Roa here. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of the Deep Dive podcast. Today's topic, how to get over a breakup faster. This is something that I've perfected over the years and several breakups. And there's one tip that is by far the most powerful thing that you can do to help move through the breakup experience faster and with more ease and with more grace. And so before I get into that, I just want to say thank you for tuning into this. Be sure to hit that subscribe, follow button if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you are. Let's continue to build this tribe and continue growing together. So thank you for being a part of it. And the tip that I want to give you today may feel a little, I don't know. I can see people thinking that this is a cop-out. I'm going to preface this, that this is a cop-out. And yet, so few people actually do this. Are you ready? Are you ready for the tip? Feel your feelings. Legitimately, this is the hack to how to move through any painful experience at a faster rate. And it's interesting when I say faster because it's not about speeding the process up as a race to get through it, because it's going to take time. There gets to be a gentleness that you have with yourself. You get to have patience for the experience. And I want you to think about it in this way. Imagine you had 100 emotions in this jar of emotions that would need to be processed before you could say you were actually past the experience. For some people, they are so overwhelmed by the emotional experience. They are so thrown by how much it hurts, how much pain there is. And so they will create a lifestyle of avoidance. And maybe once a week, they feel one of those uncomfortable feelings. And so they remove a marble from this jar of emotion. And it's going to take them 100 weeks to get through that jar of emotion, assuming, by the way, if we really want to get into the complexities of this, that they're not adding more jelly beans or marbles to this jar. And so it could take 100 weeks. And so if you allow yourself to feel the feelings, to intentionally create the space to feel those feelings, you could move through it in 100 days. You could move through it in 100 hours, theoretically. However, there is an aspect of this that I do want to add this kind of caveat to, this asterisk, which is just there will be some time, because the different emotions unveil themselves as you move through one layer into the next. It's like peeling back an onion. For example, in my last breakup, it wasn't until I got through the energetic of blaming myself, and this is going to be another podcast, right? Breaking down the different chapters of a breakup and what you're going through, because sometimes it's really helpful to know which chapter you're in and lean into it. So when I went through the chapter of blame myself for everything, once I was going through that, on the other side of that was anger. The entry point into blame her for everything. And so anyway, the point is, I didn't realize that there was so much anger underneath the surface until I had unveiled and moved through the emotions of shame and guilt and blame that I was feeling towards myself. And so the way in which you can speed this process up, and remember, I'm saying that with this little kind of star by it, right? This is about moving through the different chapters. The way that you can do this with more ease, more grace, and fluidly is by creating actual containers for you to feel the emotion. So what can that look like? That can look like saying, I am going to give myself a 30-minute window to feel these emotions with no judgment, with no trying to make meaning of it, because that just slows the process down. As we all know, our emotions don't always make sense. A lot of times they do in hindsight, because that's what happens as human beings. We just start to put the things together, right? We're pattern recognizing machines. And so we can go, oh, that's why this came up here. And that's connected to my father or my mother or my first girlfriend, et cetera, et cetera. But we see that in hindsight. And in the moment, we don't have that hindsight as a tool. And so we're in it. And what they say is you can't see the label from inside the bottle. So if you're trying to read the label from inside the bottle, you're just actually slowing down the process by trying to make a linear, logical understanding of something that isn't always linear and logical until you have some space from it. And you have more data points and you can look back on it with the hindsight. So without the need to understand, you give yourself a 30-minute window. And that can look like setting up your phone, set up a timer, and go into the emotion for that 30 minutes as deeply as you possibly can. What's up, deep divers? Hope you're enjoying the episode. I just wanted to take a moment to let you know about my new nonprofit, Surrendered Artist. This is a charity organization that I have founded because I want to teach people the power of art as a technology to shift human consciousness. I've spoken about it a lot on this podcast, and now there's an actual organization that is dedicated to spreading this information. It is also aiming to empower artists with tools to shift out of the starving artist archetype and into a surrendered artist archetype. One of those tools is my 4-step creative process called Unlock Your Inner Artist. We have a free gift for you. If you go to surrenderedartist.org/programs, or if you check out the link in the show notes, you will be able to receive a free multi-page PDF describing this process so that you can go and unlock your inner artist today. This is the part where it can be useful to have someone holding space for you, whether that's a coach, whether that's a therapist, whether that's a friend, whether that's any other container. Maybe it's a men's circle or a goddess gathering or whatever it is that allows you to feel safe to feel it. Because something that I believe deep down is that our healing will happen naturally in correlation to how safe we feel. If you can give yourself a safe container to feel it, it will come up. And so for a lot of people, when they're moving through the emotions of anger or deep, deep sadness, like grief, they can be so scared of how deep that pain goes that they're worried if they open up that door, they'll get lost in it. And if you're one of those people, if that's how you feel about this right now, then you know that you get to find someone else or a group or a container of some kind where you feel safe enough to explore at that level. Because in order for us to remove those metaphorical marbles from the jar, right, the emotions that want to be felt, the only way to truly remove one is to fully feel it. You can't feel it halfway and then bail out and think that that's enough. You will need to, at some point, really feel it. And so for myself, just to be vulnerable with you, that looked like screaming. That looked like just pounding into a pillow, just beating the crap out of it. That looked like sobbing on the ground, just on my hands and knees, just hands up in prayer to spirit going, please help me. And just in the throes of deep sobs. And I felt safe to do that because I was in a cabin in the woods by myself where no one could hear me and I could let loose. If I was in an apartment complex where I knew I had thin walls and my neighbors could hear me, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have felt safe. And that's an example of what I mean when you're creating the safety for you to explore these emotions. And so you get to feel as deeply as you possibly can and go into that. And the container that you set for yourself is just another way of giving yourself the safety, of knowing you won't get lost in it because you're creating an agreement with yourself that you get to hold, which is this amount of time is where I feel it as deeply as I can. And after that, it's done. Whether that's 10 minutes, whether that's 30 minutes, whether it's all day long and you say, today's just my feeling day. It's my emotion day. For me, it was 5.5 weeks in a cabin in the woods. I said, this is an intentional container for me to feel as deeply as I can, do the exercises, give myself the space, and this is what that time is for. And I moved through the breakup faster than I ever have in my previous breakups because I understood that every day I was removing the marbles from the jar, as opposed to dragging them out and dragging them out and dragging them out. And so there are a lot of exercises that you can do, journaling prompts that you can lean into. My hope is to continue to provide you through this podcast several of the exercises, the tips, the learnings that I've had that can help you, that can help facilitate this. Help you ask the questions that allow you to dive a little bit deeper, give you the understanding of how to access deeper emotions within this space. And the starting point is in making the conscious decision to feel all of your feelings, to feel them as deep as you can, to give yourself the space to do it, and the safety, the actual safety to know that you can do it in a way where you won't get lost in it, you won't derail your entire day or your life. And when you do that, when you feel all your feelings, slowly but surely, you're going to move through the stages. You'll move through the stage of sadness and arrive at a stage of maybe it's anger. You'll move through the stage of anger. You'll arrive in this space of deep grief. You'll move through the grief and arrive at a state of feeling like joyous and blissful. And say, yeah, I dodged a bullet. That was amazing. And then all of a sudden you move through that fully because that's another thing that you give yourself the space to feel. And all of a sudden you're back into loneliness. But as you allow yourself to move through these chapters, as you give yourself the space to feel it safely, you are creating a relationship with yourself where, one, your inner child knows that it's safe to express. Your inner child knows that it's not being ignored. You are developing a strength of integrity and character to show up for yourself, which is the very thing that unconsciously and consciously you want to be building while you're going through the breakup. That's how you realize, wow, I'm okay because I show up for me, because I know that no matter what's happening, I'm going to be okay because I will continue to show up for myself day after day. By creating this space, whether it's 5 minutes or it's 5 hours each day, by giving yourself that, you are becoming the person that you have always wanted to be, that no longer feels like they were not enough for your previous partner, that's no longer attached to this idea of the one who got it wrong or screwed up or any of that. You are building yourself into the version of you that is ready to take on the world, who has learned, who has grown, who has expanded. And once you can see that, once you know that deep in your body, you have now solidified your next stage of evolution in your life. You are going to call in even stronger and more aligned relationships, romantically, in friendships, in business. You are going to call in more abundance and prosperity. You're going to call in more fun. You are going to be living the life that you want to live as the result of the work that you put in these moments of moving through one emotion after the next, removing the marbles from the jar because you love yourself. You show up for you. And that is the foundation that will get you through your breakup more quickly than any other, is learning how to show up for yourself, letting yourself feel those emotions, and knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to be good. You're going to be more than good. You're going to be great. Because on the other side of it, you will be stronger than you've ever been in your entire life. That is the opportunity that a breakup provides. That is the opportunity that you have if you choose to show up for yourself. And watching this, listening to this, has been one way in which you have done that, and I want to acknowledge you. I want to say thank you for being a part of this deep diver tribe. Thank you for doing this work and being willing to feel. It takes a lot of courage. I appreciate you. And I want to remind you that always, in all ways, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved.